Good evening and welcome to the March 25th, 2024 Planning Board meeting. Could we first please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I've been asked by Tom, who you can't see, but he's always here for every meeting. He's the guy behind the scenes doing all the work, Tom, that we should start announcing our names. So if you want to start,
Who do you want to be?
we go from left to right.
What name you want to use tonight?
No. Go ahead.
Bob Phelan, board member.
Aaron Bach, board member.
Rich Fawn, board member.
William LaScala, board member.
Rob Garrigan, board member.
Bob Waterhouse, board member.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll get right into it. We have some correspondence. Is there anybody on the board that wants to discuss everything that's been submitted to us?
No.
Anybody?
I have one thing, it's not in correspondence, but we sent you some information this past week,
Yep.
if you recall, all you guys, which was the new and the latest submission for the Toll Brothers project.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that is going to be working its way back to the town board, and you guys should probably check that to make sure that the items that they added pursuant to your memo and your suggestions are correct and what you expected, and that they are clear and complete to what you hope to see. It's probably a good time to look at the package from a more substantive standpoint, in that once it starts working its way through the town board, you have to realize that the question of SECRA is now in the hands of the town board. They're the lead agency, so if and when it does come to you for site plan, depending on how SECRA is handled, you'll have potentially have a closed SECRA record. You have to think in those terms. You have to think of the use of the property, the intensity of intensity of use of the property, and those types of things. If you have any comments, to get into the town board's mind, sooner than later. So that's why we sent it to you a little early. It will be coming back to you, but we want to give you extra time to be able to go through some of those things.
What's the timing on our response then?
It's not on an agenda at the town board yet. It's going to be coming to you either at your next meeting or the following, probably at the next meeting. And soon thereafter, it'll be going back to the town board, so,
Do you have a full set of plans in the office?
yes,
Maybe I could sneak in and
yeah,
take a look.
sure.
We're more old school with that stuff.
Yeah, because as I was reviewing those things, I saw that it wasn't on tonight's agenda, so I really didn't prepare, for more of a discussion on it. But I would like some clarification on the impact on what was originally being proposed under the split zoning versus the rezoned idea for the entire piece. I'd like, maybe we can get some clarification on what that means as we go forward.
You mean from the project, the earlier project that was
Yeah. Does
earlier
it change the density?
approved earlier? Yeah.
Things of that sort.
Mhm.
I know we had some discussion on it earlier in the year, and I don't know how significant a change the rezoning represents in
Okay.
terms of what they're looking to do.
Anybody else?
No.
All good.
Counselor?
No, Mr. Chair.
John, if I could, the memo that was sent to us from Susan Siegel, if we could forward that to the appropriate departments to take a look at the questions that were asked.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to meeting minutes of March 11th, 2024. Any comments, additions, alterations?
All good.
Anybody?
No.
John?
Nothing yet, no.
Counselor?
No, Mr. Chair.
Do I have a motion to approve the March 11th, 2024 meeting minutes?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving to the regular portion of our meeting, or the work session, depending on who you talk to. Counselor? First, we have on the agenda, Village Traditions. This is a request for reapproval. Address 1821 East Main Street. Yeah, please. How are you? Good, how are you? Thanks for having us here. Anytime.
My cousin and I just purchased this building, 1821 East Main Street. And is it okay if I start, or?
That's what you're here for, yeah.
All right, cool. My name is Billy Batiglieri,
My name is Randy Castaldo.
and like I said, we just purchased this property a couple months ago, and a big reason why we did it was there was a site plan approval or planning board approval to build a structure in the back. It's sitting on a 1 acre lot, and we realized that on the April 24th meeting, this was reapproved for a second 1-year extension, and that expires on May 16th. So we thought we would just get ahead of it, come here, and see if we can get this extended for another year while we kind of get our bearings. As I said, we just closed about a month and a half ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you very much, guys.
Anything changed, John?
No, this is not an, excuse me. This is a reapproval, not an extension. And if you feel it's necessary, you can ask those guys to take a look at the environmental conditions at the property and make sure that there's no changes from what you looked at when you approved it. Otherwise, I would suggest, if you don't do it now, otherwise I would suggest that you do it at the next point of reapproval.
That,
Taking a hard look at the secret record, make sure there's no differences from what was reviewed at that time of approval.
When you say that, does that mean the plan is changing, or the work is changing, or?
The plan can stay the same, but it's making sure that the environmental conditions at the site have not changed. So as you know,
Oh.
for instance, a wetland can change. We require to flag them yearly when we're looking at a review. So over some time of a number of reapprovals, at some point, you typically ask for what's called a hard look at the secret record. They take a look, make sure nothing has changed, and then they report that to you.
do we do the approval first? We have to wait for that look.
No, if you do the approval tonight, I would suggest at the next reapproval that you
Put it in there.
ask for that information.
Understand what he's talking about?
I definitely do. New to me, but that makes perfect sense. We don't plan on building anything here for at least a year. A year is gonna come and go. So if we were to get this year extension on this, we'd agree to take care of any kind of environmental looks. We would wanna do that for ourselves as well. So yeah, that sounds good to me.
That's fine with us, yeah.
All right. Counselor?
No issues, Mr.
Anybody from the board?
Is there any reason why we shouldn't do the environmental review now, while we have the luxury of a period of time before they need to go forward? I mean, I don't want to jeopardize the timetable either, but I'm just wondering, should we start the process?
I think if we have, brand new owners, it's gonna be, I'm sure, a minute when you start digging into this and getting,
All right.
I don't see it being an issue. I think it's gonna be a minute before they have
Okay.
to start doing anything. And it's something we have to
We're gonna have to bring this back to you guys, I think.
are you guys you plan on making any changes or anything, or?
Great question. As of right now, no.
Okay.
But again, we're so new, we're just
Brand
trying
new
to
at
get our bearings here. We just wanted to make sure we didn't miss this deadline, but we're happy to come back here before we do anything. If there's any changes or alterations, we'll of course run that by you guys.
Yeah, I think for purposes of the deadline, we get it going and we make that note that, and just be aware, so as you're going through the process of getting things together, you might wanna, take a look at that sooner than later.
100%. And John, if I have any questions about exactly what that environmental hard look is, I'll shoot you an email.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
Yep.
great.
Or
Thank you
come
so
in
much.
anytime.
Yep, I appreciate
This
it.
was around for a while.
And John, one quick question for you. Is this an approval because you can't have a third 1-year extension? What makes this an approval rather than an extension?
Yeah, the extensions go for 2
So that's it.
consecutive
So-
times, yeah.
okay,
And then,
great.
then you have to do another approval.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any concerns? All right then, do I have a motion for the request for reapproval of the village traditions?
Motion.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Best of luck.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. Have a nice night.
Any concerns or anything, keep, John and Robin in know. All the best. Take care. Okay, next, we have the Griage Major Subdivision. This is a public hearing locations 3319 Stony Street. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Joseph Reno, the owner of Site Design Consultants. I'm here with Steve Marino from Tim Miller Associates, who's the environmental consultant on the project. This evening, we are representing Nicola Grishai, who owns an 8-acre parcel, which fronts on Stony Street, mainly on Stony Street. It's owned R120. In addition to the frontage on Stony Street, there are other town right-of-ways which end in the property or against the property. To the south is Shelley Drive. To the west is High Point Drive. And along the northern edge of the property runs Schofield Road. It's not a legitimate 50-foot right-of-way, but it is a right-of-way which runs along Schofield Road. I'm sorry, the north edge of the property, and abutting Schofield is Sunny Court. The site formerly contained a residence and a barn, which are now, they have been demolished at this point. There's a local wetland on the property, which we will be affecting, but it's being proposed to be mitigated, and Steve Marino will speak to that after I'm done. So as I said, it's 10 lots that are being proposed. The entry point onto the project is going to be the extension of High Point Drive and Shelley Street. Is it street or drive, Shelley? Street, right.
South.
Shelley Street. You'll have 2 access points to the property, to the project, and it'll terminate in a cul-de-sac at the east side of the property near Stony Street. The wetland area, as you're looking at the drawings, in the top left corner of the property or the northwest corner of the property, that's intended to remain on a separate parcel, a conservation parcel. The project's going to be served by public sewers and public water. We will be extending the water from both Shelley and High Point and extending it out to Stony Street, eliminating 2 existing dead ends and creating a loop system, which is preferable by the water department to always have a loop system and redundancy in their water supply. A full SWIP has been prepared for the project. It conforms to the New York State DEC general permit. We have designed to mitigate stormwater increases up to the 100-year storm. So the main roadway drainage is going to be carried to an infiltrator system, 2 infiltrator systems, which are located in the northeast corner of the property by Stony Street. And then each property will have a combination rain garden and infiltrator system for dealing with the individual runoff from each of those houses and driveways. In addition to that, the right-of-way of Schofield has become an eroded channel. Water from the area all concentrates there and has eroded a channel along that whole edge of the property. We've had discussions with Dan about that, and we're proposing to do some stabilization there, and we're also going to put in some stone check dams to slow the water down before it gets down to Stony Street, because there has been some issues in the past where the water has clogged existing drainage system and just gone over the top of the road.
Joe, who owns Schofield Road?
I would have to say it's the town owns it,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I don't know if it was ever formally dedicated, but it, it is a right-of-way. It's not part of this property, that's for sure.
No, the reason I was asking is, you're talking about making an improvement on Schofield Road. So I didn't know if you needed
It's-
a property owner's permission or permission from this board.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that's something I'll have to talk to Dan about.
Okay.
But I don't think there, I would not think it's in ownership, private ownership at this point.
Because would serve no purpose to.
Right. And lastly, the applicant proposes in lieu of providing on-site recreation to pay towards the recreation fund, if the board will accept that. So at this point, I'm going to ask Steve to come up and explain the wetland aspect of the project and the mitigation for both the wetland and the trees.
Thank you.
Good evening, Steve Marino, Tim Miller Associates. Can you get my map up, Joe? Oh, yeah, that looks like a different project. Okay.
Helps if you use the right plan.
Over the time that we've been before the board, we've discussed the wetlands on the property, which are predominantly on the western side of the property, and again, mostly in the northwest corner. There is a portion of wetland, and there's the map now. Did the disturbance area not show up on that one? Should be down in there. You can see the area in yellow there is the area of wetland that's not going to be disturbed, and those blobs and blotches of color on the in that area are the proposed wetland mitigation. On the 8-acre site, there's a little over 3 acres of wetlands on the property. We're proposing to fill about 11,000 square feet of wetland in order to access the road from High Point through to the cul-de-sac that's proposed. In doing that, it would cut off the majority of the what hydrology is left to the wetland, to the existing wetland. So in terms of functionality after that, it's proposed to really fill that whole 11,000 square feet to the south. Let's see, we're gonna go with that. History of the wetland, we've had these discussions before. The wetland on site originally took drainage from the south, from Shelley Street, the area there where those houses, the existing residences are, flowed down the site into the property and created that wet area and that's portion of the property. Since the development of the lots in Shelley and that neighborhood, installation of sewer and storm drains on the southern property line, that wetland has begun to dry out. So though technically it is town-regulated wetland, and we're accounting for that, functionality of that wetland has been marginalized over the years just by the lack of hydrology that used to flow to that wetland. So when you go out there now, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's kind of a 1 or a 2 wetland in terms of being wet, with marshes and ponds obviously being in the 10s, and areas that no longer get the amount of hydrology they used to get as being a 1 or a 2. So the area that we're proposing to impact, we've determined and we've submitted reports over the last couple of years on that subject. Barton and LaJudas has reviewed our recent submissions as well. So we will be filling in that portion of the wetland and then mitigating. So 11,000 square feet of fill, a little over 22,000 square feet of mitigation. So a 2-to-1 mitigation ratio as far as the wetlands are concerned. And the remainder of the wetlands on site will be in that conservation parcel as Joe showed. I think it's a 2.4 acre. I believe that's a 2.4 acre parcel there for conservation easement. One of the comments that we've received from Barton and LaJudas was that they're concerned about further cutting off the hydrology by putting the new roadway in. There's accommodation for somehow linking the stormwater management systems on the lots to the south, but also we've been in discussions about diverting some of the water that goes to an existing town stormwater structure just to the west of the property, diverting some of that through to our new mitigation area as well to provide additional hydrology to the new wetlands. The grading plan does. You're going to show that, okay? So what we're proposing is taking that runoff from High Point Drive and diverting it through our mitigation wetland to ensure that there's enough hydrology to, in fact, create a wetland there rather than just a relatively dry hole in the ground. There will be some excavation there as well, which will get into the superficial groundwater, which will also hydrate the wetland and allow for the wetland vegetation that we've proposed to grow in there. That's the wetland part of the picture. Then regarding trees, we've identified over 500 trees on the property. A number of those trees are invasive or non-native trees, which will be removed, but there's still quite a few trees that are coming out. We acknowledge that. Of the 470 or 480 town-regulated trees on the property, we'll be removing 253 by our last count. So it's a little over half of the trees on the site will be removed. But 222 trees, and some of them increasingly large trees, some up to 40 inches in diameter, will remain on the site. There have been adjustments to the site plan, again, over the last year in order to preserve some of those larger trees, and some of them are actually relatively rare at that size. So those trees will be preserved on the property. We are proposing, as part of the landscaping plan and wetland mitigation, to replant 57 trees on the property, and based on calculations both from Barton and LaJudas and the Tree Commission, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of $27,000 to $29,000 in mitigation funds to the tree bank. So we're proposing to accommodate that payment. About between 27 and 20. Barton and LaJudas had one number in the 27s and in the 29s. The Tree Commission had a number in the 27s. So we're somewhere in that ballpark, $27,000 to $29,000 to the tree fund.
The existing wetlands, what condition are they in terms of hydrology and function and?
The existing wetlands, to be honest, aren't that different from the existing woodlands on the site, except that they're a little bit wetter, because there is sheet flow, again, coming from the south that comes across the site and creates wetter surface soil conditions in that part of the wetland. So, in that part of the property. But there's enough of a difference in vegetation, there's enough of a difference in the soil types there that we identified that as wetlands. We flagged that a couple of years ago, and Johanna Duffy from Barton LaJudas has walked the site with me as well and confirmed.
Which is
the wetland.
largely the yellow area, right?
It's the yellow area, and there's an area to the south where that second lot into the site is located. It's also wetland there. For some, on our plans, it was shown in pink, the area that's to be filled. For some reason, the PDF didn't pick up that color. And
Are you planning any mitigation practices or measures in that yellow area?
What we usually propose in a situation like this, in addition to the planting and creation of new wetlands, is the removal of invasive species. So there's an invasive species management plan for the site as well, which includes the removal of non-native trees, the dreaded Phragmites, which I know you guys have all heard me talk about before, barberry, other nuisance vegetation that's growing on the site that's non-native to our area. So that invasive species management plan is part of the overall proposal.
Okay, and are you planning to replant anything in place of the removed areas? In other words, some understory, wetland type plantings, or if you're taking down a number of invasive trees, and I don't know the number in there that you'll be removing,
Yeah.
but
I don't have the number off the top.
replacing them with, the proper type of tree?
The number of invasive trees in the areas in the wetland, in the existing wetland area, is relatively low.
Low, okay.
Black locust is generally the invasive species we have most on this site, and that typically doesn't grow in wetlands, so we're not really seeing that in the wetland areas. The black locusts are outside of the wetland. So it's not really the trees so much as the honeysuckle shrubs and the barberry and some Phragmites are the primary species that we're seeing in the wetland area itself. So we would clear those out, but there isn't currently a plan to do any replanting in the wetland itself after the removal of the density of non-native species in the wetland is relatively low.
That is, I'm just suggesting, I'm bringing it up because it's an area that you could use as mitigation, not just for the wetland, but also for the tree removal issue.
Steve, the existing water course that's on the perimeter of the property, is that like a drainage ditch?
It's a drainage ditch. It's connected to those two catch basins on High Point. So what you're seeing as a channel there is really a channel that's created by storm flows. So every time it rains, there's an 18-inch, I think, pipe just to the north of that, those two catch basins at the end of High Point. Every time it rains, water comes out of there. So there is a channel that's formed over the years, and that's what's showing on that topography there.
And do you anticipate the volume that current watercourse handles would increase for any reason because of kind of?
No, I don't think it, the watershed feeding those catch basins there, if I'm not mistaken, isn't changing. So the amount of water that's coming through there won't change. Our site water is going elsewhere to Joe's stormwater management plans.
Anybody from the board?
Nothing here.
It's a public
Thank you.
hearing, so anybody from the public want to come up? If you have any questions to ask of the applicant, please. How are you?
She'll write something to you.
If you could just state your name for the record.
Yeah, my name's Robert Buchanan. I live at 3318 South Shelley Street, one of the adjoining properties. I'm very interested in the comments that were made. I sent an email to the planning board on Sunday, and that email contained a number of photographs and a video clip taken from my property looking over what appears to be on the map lots 7, 8 and 9. The videos and the pictures show water flowing down that slope and collecting in large pools at the bottom of the slope. I'm not sure if that water flow has been addressed in any of your studies, but it is significant, and it's not connected to the wetlands in the corner that's planned to be kept for the mitigation. So I would certainly request that the town and the planning board and any other state agencies that take care of that have a good look at that, because it is, when there's rain like Saturdays, it's a significant flow there, and you can see by the pictures and the video that it's there. I noticed that the initial plans were, the survey was done in November, and maybe that has been updated, but certainly in the spring, and even after the spring, if you walk out there, the land is soggy to walk on. Maybe it's not a wetland as a swamp, but it is certainly water in the soil. And I would respectfully request that the planning board take a close look at that. Because if it's obvious now in a rainstorm and you can see all that water flowing down and collecting, I think that that's something that at least needs to be looked at. The other question, unfortunately, we heard a good presentation here about the trees. But when you look at the totality of the trees, almost 2/3 of them are going to be gone, just gone. And that, compared to what it is now, it's going to be a very, very big change, particularly for the people who are used to, the neighbours all around this property are used to looking out their windows and seeing a nice patch of forest. All that has been gone. You know, it's a wildlife habitat that's going to be gone. It's a place of quiet and stillness which is going to be gone, and not only gone but replaced by a lot of noise and a lot of activity and a lot of disturbance to the neighbours around. So although we talked about the Tree Commission and their work, and I really hope that they closely examined the tree situation, and you know, to have a mitigation in one corner while the rest of it is bare doesn't seem fair to the people whose view is going to be totally destroyed by that. So basically, they're the two issues that I was very concerned about: the water flows, and I feel like the Lorac's up here talking about the trees, but I feel that someone's got to talk for the trees. I'm sure that the issues that exist with the traffic and the extension of South Shelley onto High Point, they still exist. We haven't, as citizens of the area, residents of the area, we haven't got an adequate explanation of why that needs to be joined. I know that there was some discussion with proposed discussion with the fire department to see if that extension was too long to be safely serviced by the fire department. I don't think we got an adequate answer for that. And on that point, I'd like to note that just across Stony Street, there's a street whose name escapes me now. Audra Court, yes, which is almost or longer than the High Point extension, which doesn't have any access for fire apart from it. So if you can have a development there with no side access for fire department, why do we need one off South Shelley? So they're basically my points, and again, I respectfully request that the board look into them.
Thank you for your comments. How you doing?
Good evening, everybody. Joe Castelli. I live at 1306 Lydia Court, which is, again, adjacent to the proposed property on the northwest corner, I believe. I just want to kind of reiterate some of my neighbors' comments. I agree with them 100% about what we physically see on that property in terms of water and runoff, especially in the spring. One of my concerns, and this is, there'll be a question here somewhere, I'm sure, but my property is slightly higher than that whole proposed property. And when it's wet out, I get weeping in my garage, meaning the water's coming up from a little bit underneath, and yet that property, and I don't have the exact numbers, but I would say 5 to 6 feet, and then sloping even further down, lower than my property. So I'm just concerned about how any proposed development will affect, would water be built up back towards my house and make whatever minor water problems I have worse? That is one of my concerns. Another question, and Rob brought up the trees, and I don't know if I had this right. They said there are about 400 or something trees on the property. Is that accurate? Is that what you?
480. About 480 trees within the limits of disturbance of the property and immediate area surrounding that.
That would be affected, because I mean, if you look in there, there's a tree every 2.5, 3 feet. I just find it that they said you're gonna displace 200 trees. Is that including what was considered invasive? Because just seeing the scope of this, I just don't see that only maybe 200 trees are going to be affected by this. I could be wrong. I'm just speaking from observations out my back window and knowing the property, the extensive amount of trees that are there, and that's just from what I can see. And I know this property goes way farther towards, as you said, Sunny Court and down to Stony. So those are my concerns as to how many trees would actually be affected. And then again, what is the overall effect on I am concerned about drainage. So I just don't want my property to be made worse. One of the other concerns I have is again, if you look at, and I don't have my own maps. If the schematic of the, can that possibly be put up just so I can give you perspective? I appreciate it. So if I can just step away, this is Shelley Street, and this is my property, pretty much right here. So we talk about traffic flow, and certainly there's a concern. I've lived there for close to 20 years. Bought the property specifically because of the makeup of the neighborhood, and that it was a cul-de-sac and a dead end. And I understand things can change, but the traffic flow. If you look at this, anybody entering or leaving that property, using common sense, will most likely use Judy to Shelley to this property. Almost, I'm not saying exclusively, but if you go up High Point, you're going into a deeper, more residential area with smaller streets to get out anywhere. Almost exclusively, that is going to be used. That is going to increase the traffic up Judy and down onto Shelley. I think that is a significant impact on that whole neighborhood, going up Lydia and certainly onto Shelley and Judy. It's just going to increase traffic, even though maybe only 10 houses. How many cars, how many deliveries, there's so much more, and it will exclusively funnel in that direction. At least that's my subjective opinion. So I do have concerns about the way the traffic is going to go and the effect on the neighborhood. My kids are grown. I still enjoy the neighborhood, and I don't know if anybody else is here, but the neighborhood is becoming young again, and there's families and kids walking. There's people running all over the place. There's kids playing in the street that will certainly be impacted by a lot more constant flow of traffic into the area. I also I just have a question because I'm not really educated about this stuff. But this short environmental assessment form that was made available online when this came up, that was completed. Is this something that is reviewed? I mean, is this submitted by the developer or somebody involved with the developer? Is it? I mean, some of the things that are checked yes or no, I have questions about. Is this an appropriate time to?
Yeah, this is the time.
It says, will the proposed action result in a substantial increase in traffic above present levels? And it's checked off no. I would argue that that's not accurate. It also says, question 13, would the proposed action physically alter or encroach into any existing wetlands or water body? It does say yes, and it says, if yes, identify the wetland or water body and extent of alterations in square feet or acres. And the answer is certainly not in square feet or acres. The answer is there will be an encroachment in the wetland, which the proposal will include offsetting mitigation. Just some of these things that were provided, and I figured I'd look at all of them that I have questions about. And then secondly, the impact assessment, which I believe it says the lead agency is responsible. Is that you guys? So I'm just curious as to when would that get done, if it has not been done.
So the town hired a consultant
Yes.
to look at a lot of this, and they've been working with the applicant, because that's why they've been gone for quite a while, working out those issues. But we'll certainly look at what you brought up tonight. That's the purpose of this meeting. We appreciate you taking the time to go through that book.
Sure.
And we will get answers to you.
Okay,
That's the
but
purpose.
I'm just who fills that part out, and when would that would
The applicant fills it out, we check it.
so the lead agency, who is that?
It's the planning board.
So I mean, there's basically, I think, a reiteration of some of the questions that at least your independent assessment of what was already asked them to fill. When would the planning board potentially fill that out? As just.
So tonight's the public hearing.
Yeah.
This is the chance for the public. There was a public informational, I think you spoke at that time too. This is a public hearing, so this is the time for everybody to come out, ask the questions. If the hearing is closed, then we start going into work sessions where we start to bang out the details. So this isn't the end. This is just the part where we start to look at the questions that everybody had. We answer them. We make judgments about tweaking a lot of this, if that helps.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense.
And, I know the developer is responsible for, I guess, a lot of the environmental and the wetlands assessment. Does the town do its own to verify that's accurate? And has that been done yet?
There's a firm that was hired.
That the city hired, the town hired?
Yeah.
And have they made any, is there determination?
They did a memo, and they've been working with the applicant, and we're gonna dig more into that as we go.
That's not public, right?
Anything that's done is public.
Is that,
It hasn't been completed.
It's not-
it hasn't been
As we
completed.
go-
Once it's
As we
completed,
go through this process, anything outside, I think, of John and Robin's personnel records is,
No,
is available to the public.
as I said, a lot of us try to look up the information, and some of us aren't.
You can get,
good at,
you can get it through my office.
when it's done, though, right? I mean, it's not done.
No, anytime. You can, you
Oh,
you
okay.
have available to you anything that's in the record as of today.
Okay.
You know, some things will come in after the fact, so you have to keep up on it, but
Right.
office is open and you can observe the records.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. And just one thing, I didn't realize, there was, I think one of the gentlemen mentioned that there was a barn and something else previously on the property. I don't know how long ago, but is that of any concern of what was done there? I mean, I don't know any of the stuff, but like soil sample or was all that part of the environmental survey in case, who knows what agriculture or what was done on the property in the past that disturbing any of the soil would cause any problems. It just popped into my head because I didn't know there was anything on the property prior, but a barn and I guess an old structures and things like that. It would indicate it was more than just woods or residential at some point.
There was a house and a barn.
Was it just a house and a barn? It wasn't a farm or anything
It was
like
a farm, but many, many years ago.
Many years ago. Okay.
So obviously, all the trees that you see have grown up
Yeah.
over several decades, a number of decades. But there was a house and a barn there, probably up to, I don't know, 2010 maybe, something like that area.
Great. And just my last comment, I appreciate the time, is that, you know, I understand, you know, development and new houses, but I would just say the neighborhoods that are there have been there for a long time, and this proposal is to create a nice, secluded, out of the way neighborhood. But in doing that, you're disturbing at least two in sunny High Ridge area and certainly neighborhoods that have been there forever, that have been part of this community forever, for the sake of 10 new houses that you're disrupting. And changing the flow and just the whole layout of the town. So you're potentially destroying and opening up neighborhoods to traffic and all sorts of other stuff, and creating one 10-unit thing that now enjoys the seclusion and the kind of the privacy that we've had for a lot longer time as residents of Yorktown. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Sorry. How are
Thank
you?
you. I just wanted to really stress what my two neighbors just said. I'm sorry, Anne Marie McAllister. I am the homeowner at the end of High Point Drive. I own the home that abuts this property, and we have our fair share of water there as well. And so behind the home, our home is where South Shelley is. My home is lower than that, so we've always had water flowing from the neighborhood above us, always. So much so that we have a really cute little waterfall, you know, in the back every time it rains, heavy. We've put a ton of storm drains in, French drains around the property, all of that. So I just want to stress that all the water that comes onto my property, it's not going to go over to the wetlands section. It's not going to jump across the street and go there. It's going to go onto this property. So it's an ongoing problem. We're the original homeowners, 24 years. It's a fabulous neighborhood. But I just want to stress that water, it's still going to be a problem for the new neighbors down the road. When we bought the home, that land was wet. I mean, this much water. It's really not that much different now. It's still very, very wet. And so I just wanted to sort of, you know, support the my other two neighbors that said that. Haven't met either of you, but nice to meet you. But my real question here was, in several of the meetings, I thought there was some discussion of whether or not the street had to be widened, High Point Drive, I mean. And so that's my question. Is the street going to have to be widened? It's going to stay the way it is. Well, that was my only
So
question.
the cul-de-sac will be removed.
Oh, so
It'll be a straight road.
so for those of us that are, you know, on the cul-de-sac, that means that the front part of our property will be filled in, or something.
It'll become your lawn. Become lawn.
So that's a big change for the front of the property, for our gardens and everything else that's in the front there.
You would get more, what would appear to be more property. the road would be a straight shot.
But the rest of the road, the street does not have to be widened at all, and it's gonna be the same length. Well, that was my only question. Well, thank you, but that water problem, it's not gonna go away, and it's truly not gonna jump across the street. And all of the water that comes from the neighborhood behind us go to the storm drain right in the front of my house, down at, right at the corner that abuts this property. That's not gonna stop, we're having all these 100-year storms. It's gonna keep going, and that neighborhood's gonna be affected by it.
You said you were the original owner of the house? 24 years ago?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes, the millennium, we moved in right before the millennium. And it's a fabulous neighborhood.
It is.
But thank you, that was my question.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tim Sullivan, and I live on the corner of South Shelley and Lydia Court. As I stated at a previous board meeting, I object to the road design for this project, specifically the egress proposed to tap off of South Shelley Street. My neighbors and I have gone on record stating the reasons we object to this. In effect, it creates a through street on a dead-end road, which also intersects the cul-de-sac at Lydia Court. It will greatly increase road traffic on Shelley Street, which is currently used predominantly for recreation, such as people walking and kids playing, as my neighbors have mentioned. And this resultant increased traffic will also make our neighborhood road more dangerous and negatively impact our quality of life. We've been told at previous meetings that the second egress is required because of safety concerns, yet right across the street at Ardra Court, as mentioned, there's a development with just as many houses and is just as long as the proposed subdivision's egress from High Point Drive. If requirements have changed since then, and in fact a second egress is needed, I respectfully submit that the subdivision be redesigned so that the second egress either comes directly off of Stony Street or one of the runs off of Sunny Ridge, so as not to impact our neighborhood. And I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Sergio, I thought you were gonna get up and speak.
Yeah.
Anybody?
I could sing too, but you don't want to hear that.
No.
Thank you.
That would be a private hearing.
All right, does no one else to speak? Board have anything? Any comments?
No comments.
I have a few, Joe, if I could.
Go ahead.
So, the residents that were built, it sounds like about 25 years ago, probably 26 went through the process. Just like my home, I moved up here same time, 25. We bought a lot, put a house on it, and it was developed. Can you talk about what's changed stormwater-wise, the regulations that are been put in place between today and, let's say, when that development was probably engineered 30 years ago?
Yeah, so since then, the state stormwater regulations, the general permit, and the standards have been revised, I would say, 4 times. Of course, each time, new innovation, more practical methods of dealing with stormwater, and the rainfall amounts have increased to be more consistent with the amount of rain we're getting. So at the time that those other parts of the development were built, the rainfall in general was, let's say, 2 inches or more or less was considered 2 inches or more or less than what we factor in now. So we're actually, designing it to a much higher standard than anything was done back in the year 2000 or before that. So what we need to provide is we're still designing up to the 100-year storm. However, the 100-year storm has changed. So the volume that we're dealing with, the rate at which it's coming down, and that we have to deal with is much greater. And that's all factored into what we've designed.
And so like this year, I think is the wettest year, I think.
It's been, yeah,
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it sounds like this this year,
Right.
it was one of the record books.
Right.
Have you seen that property change from the beginning? Because this development, proposed development's been around for a while. Has the wetlands, or has it increased? Have you seen it diminish? I mean, I'm hearing it's diminishing, even though we're getting these torrential storms, what
Yeah.
appears to be every other week, it seems like a time.
Well, I'll let Steve speak to that, but I think one of the things that, and Steve spoke about that in his presentation, is because of erosion and channelization, water has been rerouted. It's basically been picked up and it's being routed around the site, especially on that, off this edge here. This edge right here, and this channel has developed, and it goes around the site and down Schofield, so it almost acts like a cutoff now along that edge. And those two catch basins at the lowest point, so that's the lowest point of High Point Drive right now, where those two catch basins are, just before they enter the property. That discharges directly into that channel. So all that water coming off or hitting the street or hitting those two catch basins is going into that channel around the site essentially to the north and then down along that north edge.
So part of your proposal is to let that sheet flow into this wetland that you're gonna be?
Correct. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come out of that catch basin there with an additional pipe. So we're gonna split the flow coming out of there, and we're gonna allow some of that to provide hydrology to the wetland. So that will not only help the health of the wetland, but it would also reduce some of that channelized water that's eroding that whole Schofield Road right away.
So I always try to equate drainage now as compared to years ago was the emissions on a car, right? The emissions on a car today, 2024, are very, very different than they were 30 years ago. It's like a different animal.
Yeah.
So, and we're always very concerned that people get impacted by stormwater. So we've heard from a few of the residents that, you know, they're concerned, they have issues already with the stormwater, water percolating up out of areas of their property. If we now take this point source, directing it around and allow it to flow more freely, I would hope that would have a positive impact uphill from there.
Yeah, well, first of all the adjoining properties are higher than this site. And everything is flowing from west to east towards Stony Street. And again, all those properties are higher. They're not gonna be impacted by any runoff from this project. If anything, runoff from their properties will impact this project, which we're going to be intercepting and dealing with, because of course we don't want to design a subdivision that the houses are going to flood, right? So we're going to be picking up that water and dealing with that within our site and within our stormwater system. So the water that's flowing across their yard and onto our site, I can't help that. I can't do anything about that. That's
Coming your way.
It's coming our way. We can only deal with what hits our site.
John, when this gets referred out, it goes to the fire department, the police department, highway department, everybody takes a look at the proposed layout, right?
Yes.
And the connection in here on Audra Street, which I'm not sure when that was built, but that was, I think, some years ago too. This project, the property itself and the streets around it look like years ago they anticipated at some point this getting built out. Is that the case?
That's the case.
All right, so.
That's the case, Rich. I was on the board when Sunny Ridge got approved.
See, all right, so
That's my fault.
when this was done, because you have dead ends that lead to nowhere, the cul-de-sac with the dead end past it. So the intent was at the
The
time.
intent was to provide access for possible future connection, specifically.
All right,
And I think that's stated in your land development regulations, that where possible, the planning board should always.
right. And the zoning here hasn't changed over the years or anything.
Yeah, there's also the issue of the length of the dead end.
Yeah. For
Because
code
what-
purposes of code. All right. Anybody else have any questions?
No questions.
John?
I don't have anything at this time.
I have
no.
a question about recreation, because this went back so far that I wasn't around for I don't know, anybody was around for when this started, I'm not sure. But part of the presentation from the applicant was that there was gonna be a donation in lieu of land.
Yep.
Has this board reached that determination, or are they simply their proposal at
I
this point?
think they're proposing.
Yeah, we're offering that.
All right, so we have to make a decision on
Yeah.
it. So, okay, so this board hasn't taken a position on that?
No.
Okay, all right, that's essence of my question.
Okay. Counselor,
No questions from me, Mr. Chair.
you got anything, Sergio?
No, not at all.
All right, so I make a motion then to close the public hearing on the Griage Major Subdivision.
Motion.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would ask you, anybody who spoke tonight, just as we go through work sessions, to keep in the loop on these things, because a lot of what you asked, we'll dig into the details as this goes through. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Appreciate you showing up.
Thanks, good night, everybody.
Good night,
Thank
Joe. Okay, we'll close the regular portion. Do I have a motion to move in the work session?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Protest?
Yeah, well, it's, I'm the largest standing protest.
Next on the agenda, we have TJ Maxx. This is at the Yorktown Green Shopping Center. This is a discussion of site plan, location 355 Downing Drive. How are you?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Christopher Feldman. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Harris Beach PLLC. We're here on behalf of Oster Yorktown Properties. With me today, I have John Kabita of Jarmo Keisel Architects. He's going to take you through the project. We also have a representative of the owner. Very briefly, what we're proposing and what we're bringing before the board this evening, as you mentioned, TJ Maxx will be moving into the site, is our hope. And as part of that, we would be adding a new loading dock that would be specifically dedicated to that location or part of the store. We'd also be adding a trash compactor and a trash enclosure. So those are the things that we're here before you guys with on in terms of site plan.
Yeah.
Are you adding square footage to the building?
No, we're not adding any square footage to the building at this point. We're just adding these outside exterior things.
Do you have the plans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually with that, why don't we do this? I'm gonna introduce John Kabita, who's the architect on this project. He can walk you through the finer points of.
Thank you.
Is that vacant now?
Yes, Kmart.
How are you? Is this in a good location?
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I
Want
think
me to
everybody
shift
can
it
see
over?
Tom, can you see that?
Okay. So it's been about 4 years since I've used one of these. COVID, everything's been digital, so bear with me. Next time we come, we'll make sure to have it digital so it's easier for
Okay.
everybody. My name is John Kabita, architect. I'm from Jarmel Keisel Architects and Engineers, and I will be here to walk you through the project, both civilly and architecture.
Yeah,
Okay. So we're here to continue to beautify the area of where Uncle Giuseppe's is over on 335 Downing Drive. So we wanted to take the old Kmart and we want to take it from a single tenant use and now create multiple, probably 4 to 5 different tenants within that facility. We wanted, so as part of this conversion, we plan on modernizing the building to attract new tenants. A few of the tenants we do have leases, obligations with, which we'll go through. One of the largest tenants will require that we have more of a dedicated loading dock, kind of in the rear of the building. They want to have a depressed loading ramp. And then additionally, they want to have the loading dock that's going to be accompanied by a trash compactor, enclosed trash area, and along with the recycling. Okay. And then as part of this, we want to also beautify and make
the front of the facade more modern. We're providing a whole series of materials which go through on the architectural. Okay. This application, we're not changing any of the impervious areas. We're not going to be increasing that. So that, I think that's a important topic to talk about. Okay. And then as part of modernize the building, we're also going to bring it up to ADA compliance with the sidewalks. And so in the front, so we're going to be updating the sidewalks, make it nicer. We're going to be updating the parking area and connecting it with the ADA crosswalks here. And then kind of in the middle of the building where the old entrance to the Kmart was, we're going to be modifying that depressed, making a depressed access way. Okay. And then also we'll be providing, we're meeting the requirements of the ADA parking. So we'll be providing 14, and of those 14, 9 of them will be ADA van accessible. And then let me just go back in the, so let me just touch on the rear of the building where most of the activities for supporting the TJ Maxx. So as you enter the site from either, so this is the Sawmill Road. So as you come from either Curse or if you come off Downing, since it is a retail store, we're going to have to provide access for the trucks and deliveries, and we'll try to schedule that for off hours so it doesn't interrupt and interfere with the normal traffic circulation. So the TJ Maxx, they actually made us do a whole a truck study to make sure we can get these trucks in and out. So we do have the information, although I'm not bringing it tonight, but we did kind of go through that. So the trucks would be entering towards the back and then to the back of the building, and then the one large tenant, the anchor store here, we do have support here. So we'll have the loading dock, we'll have the trash compactor, and then the accompanying recycling and trash.
So that little knob there, that's additional
It is actually.
interior space.
So,
And I just saw that in my notes, correct?
Okay, yeah, just want to be clear on
Sorry,
what,
yeah.
on what we're talking
I
about.
think loading dock, I don't think, but yeah.
I understand, I
So-
understand.
so to clarify, so the existing building is about 90,230 square feet. That's existing. So what we're proposing is a 576 square foot addition, okay? That addition, the use of that addition is just warehouse. So trucks offload it, comes into that warehousing section, and then we'll distribute it throughout the building.
Bless you.
So that's the basic premise of the site plan. Any questions, thoughts before I flip to the architectural?
How many square feet would TJ Maxx be?
The TJ Maxx, it's, I believe, 20,000 off the top of my, I have it.
Do you have any plans for the rest
It's
of the building?
25,000. I do have the architecturals.
Yeah, no, do you have any plans for the rest of the building?
The rest of the building, we have the TJ Maxx, we have a Five Below, we have a Michaels, and then the other tenant to be determined.
Oh, there you go. I didn't see that.
Can I ask you about, you mentioned you're going to be upgrading and bringing into compliance the ADA issues with the site, and I take that to mean what's out in front of the building?
Correct.
Can you describe what you're planning to do with the sidewalk area and so forth?
Tuck that behind the building. Okay. So we propose so in front of the Kmart section of the building, we propose ripping out the sidewalks, very slightly regrading it, but it'll mostly be new concrete sidewalks, some brick pavers to make it nicer, bring it up to today's standards, so it's not just strictly concrete, and then it'll match the building to the left, what we have on the sidewalks here. So concrete and the brick pavers. And then we'll have a depressed area of the curb that'll fit nicely with the existing crosswalks and access ways. And then as you get towards the center, that will have a nice depressed area for entrance to get through, so there's no tripping hazards as well.
So the extent of the sidewalk replacement will be from curb to building
Yes,
and across the entire width of the existing Kmart?
that is correct.
That's what's planned right now?
Yes. And
Did
we're
you
gonna
do
ma-
any landscaping plan?
No, we don't have a landscaping plan, no. Okay. And then there's a few areas towards the back of the building where just the pavement, it's just old and deteriorated a little bit, so we're gonna be ripping that out and then replacing it in a few areas here. And then the existing loading dock, same thing, it's deteriorated over time, so we're just gonna rip that out and replace it. Okay.
So the uses that are proposed are the same as the existing?
Yes.
Or the older use?
Correct.
So there's no increase in parking or anything of the such?
There's a theoretical increase in the parking demand by virtue of the new
Individual?
interior space. It's minimal, right? It's maybe 1 or 2 spaces tops. Also, let's remember that when this was built out and approved, it was at 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross area. Now the regulation is 4 spaces, so I don't think they'll have a problem with parking, but nevertheless, you have to go through it by virtue of the fact of that, the loading dock, and the loading dock, makes a change in kind of the operation of the site, so.
And the building's been vacant for how many years now?
I don't have that answer, but I would, at least 10 years, I would imagine.
No, not that long. Yeah, I don't think it's that long.
Probably
Kmart
close,
closed, what,
right?
5 years ago, 4 years ago?
It's, how much? 3 years.
3 years?
3?
I take that back, 3 years.
So you need to look at the landscaping, of course.
Yeah.
And just the parameters of the site and the original approval. Some things may need to be brought back to the approving conditions.
Can we get that original approval?
So does it change because they already have a loading dock back there, does that change the operation of the site because it's a second loading dock, or?
Yeah, because more trucks are coming in, and it's on the other side facing a different way, so there's a little bit different operation, so.
So maybe we should individually go out there and just take a walk around.
Yeah.
Just to get eyes on it.
The other thing that I'd like to point out that I've been made aware of, and any of these 3 guys can make any clarifications to what I'm about to say if they care to. They are doing some demolition on the interior now, correct? Yes. And they are hoping to start some of the interior fit-up work. So this process will be moving in a parallel fashion to some of the interior work that they will be doing under a separate building permit. So I think that at some point in the very near future, if you want to issue a memo about what those parameters are and that you're fine with that, then you can do so.
There's also, your elevations also show a sign on the 118 side of the building, the back side of the building, which I don't think there's any signage for any tenants on the back of that building. So that's a new addition as far as we're concerned.
Yeah.
I think that's something we have to be aware of, because we're gonna now introduce that into the vocabulary if we okay that.
All right, so we gotta start working through the details.
Yeah.
John, when you think about a landscaping plan for that space, are you contemplating like trees or planters? What's your thought, or just
Something
asking?
something along those lines. There was trees there. I guess they had
There's trees
health,
well
health,
shown on.
yeah, health problems. On the other side, there's trees, so it was almost like a tree-lined, street.
Sidewalk.
So
That
what
was
you
the
could
idea,
do is rather than have a 5x5 tree well, you can make them much longer so the trees could possibly have a better chance at, continuing their life in a more healthy state. Or you can go to planters and do lower plantings. I mean, I think it's up for grabs now.
Were you guys on the board when this went through, originally?
I was.
You were,
Well, I was on
the town board.
the town board, and we did 2/3 of this, and then
That's a scar, we don't want to
handed
revisit.
it off. Well, and then the planning board took it over.
That when you sued him. It is.
But that was designed to be like a street
Yeah.
Right.
in the
Right.
shopping center.
Yeah,
That
and
was
it,
the
and
idea.
it does work like that. It's actually an interesting and somewhat uncommon layout because it is in a certain way part of the street grid.
Yeah.
My only suggestion about the rear of the building is if we're going to introduce having them put signage there, then the back of the building, I think, should be addressed beyond just the signage and look at the aesthetics of the rear of the building. Because you're encouraging people to look there, whereas before 118 was kind of landscaped so that you wouldn't see the back of the building so much. Now, if you're gonna put a sign there, then let's talk about fixing up the back of the building, so it's presentable. But it's either one or the other. Either you're gonna take people's eye away from it, or you're gonna focus their eye on it. If you're gonna focus their eye on it, it ought to be worth looking at. So, I'm not taking a position now, because you haven't expressed one way or the other, but I think we could hear both sides of that and see where we're gonna go.
Okay. When I start discussing the architecturals, we can go over that point.
You do have signage on, was that 118? That's 118?
118.
Because you've got Optimums there, you've got Uncle Giuseppe's
No,
with
but I'm
signage
talking
facing.
about just the back of their building.
Right, yeah. Well, I
Because I
think
know
that's-
originally, I think, when I was on the board last, we looked at that and tried to basically
Hide it.
not bring your eye
Yeah.
to that.
Right.
Because of all the service aspects of the back of the building, the loading docks. But if we're going to put a sign up there, then I think the back of the building should be addressed, and it's on 118, and
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to taking a look
No,
at
I'm-
fixing it up and making it look better.
Yeah, I think beautification requires for the entire project
The whole
site,
thing.
right?
And
Yeah.
there's substantial parking on the back of that building, so that doesn't ever get used. So, I don't know.
That's it.
So we'll individually go out there, take
Yeah, you want?
a walk around?
Sure.
Drive around. I go there all the time.
Because I don't think there's not a lot of parking behind what was Kmart, right? There is behind like where the grill
The
was.
whole back of that building
Right.
has a lot of area to it. You go back there, you'd be surprised. I went through there, I forget why, there was doing, some reason I had to go back that way, and I was surprised at what I saw. It's much larger than you think it is.
Yeah, the
Yeah, but
parking
once you
is,
start I'm sorry.
No, go
Once
ahead.
you start bringing tractor trailers in and
Oh, yeah.
on standby, that area gets consumed.
Right.
Real quickly.
Mhm.
There is parking behind what would have been the bars and the restaurants.
Yeah,
and-
separate
Right,
building.
that's even larger.
Yes.
That's correct. But
that's where it was utilized. The parking back there was on where the dental, the Optum Dental, and this cars parked there all the time.
Right.
It's more the other side, like the Burger King side, there's not as many, there's spots back there as well, but they're underutilized.
But I think we have to look at that tractor trailer exiting the site across the back of that parking area has got to be considered, because they're gonna go out, because they're aimed that
But
way.
they're only going in and out. There's
Right.
one by Burger King and one by the,
Yeah, but he was saying that they're encouraging, because the orientation of the loading dock, that the traffic is gonna enter near Burger King and go along the back of the building and back into the loading dock. That means they're gonna then go forward all
well,
the way out.
that's because they're proposing, loading docks in different directions.
Right,
Yeah.
so, that's what I'm saying, we're gonna be encouraging those tractor trailers to go out closer to Uncle Giuseppe's.
Yes.
So we need to make sure that they're gonna have a turning radius and not interfere with the parking layout.
They will be backing into the loading dock from essentially that back parking area.
Right.
Yeah. That's it. Okay. Yeah, I'll run you through the architecturals. So make sure I don't break it.
You don't use them that much anymore, huh?
This wouldn't be the first one I broke. Just kidding. All right, so here's the layout of the old existing Kmart. So the idea is to have 1, 2, 3 demising walls, although it is subject to change because you never know. Different outfits may come in, they may require less, or who knows, even more square footage. But as of right now, we have the space all the way to the left, about 25,000 square feet. That's for the TJ Maxx. Okay. I'll run through again what they require. Small little processing room. It's 576 square feet. We are proposing a loading dock depressed area here. So from grade down to the lowest point, it's about -3 feet. Okay, there is the compactor pad, it's about 10 feet by 40 feet, and that's for the garbage and things like that. And then to the right side of the new addition is the enclosed dumpster. We have 2 dumpsters and then the existing recycling area. It's like 36 feet now, we're gonna just shrink it down to fit all the uses here, okay? So, it's TJ Maxx, then we have a Five Below here, a Michaels. So before I get to Michaels, so the Five Below is about 10,000 square feet. The Michaels is just shy of 25,000 square feet. And then the end tenant, which is approximately 25,000 square feet, that's to be determined, okay? So in the rear of the building, there is an existing shared loading dock area, which we're gonna continue to use that as a shared loading dock area. There's 1, 2, 3 loading bays, and then there is also an existing sloped ramp that we're gonna utilize. There was a stair in the back that protruded into one of the lanes of the loading docks that really made it unusable, so we're gonna remove that concrete landing and sidewalk. We're gonna remove that. We double-checked the egress to make sure it is safe to get in and out in the case of emergency. And then we also have an existing dumpsters on the right side of the building that we're gonna continue and maintain. Okay. And then in the front of the building, I'll go over it one more time. So we do have the sidewalk here. We are gonna maintain what is there impervious-wise. That's the plan for now with the decorative pavers. We are proposing to have lights on the front, like wall sconces, and I'll show them as we get to the elevations. Okay. What else is important here? And second page. 1, 2. Proposed. Okay. All right, so this is the exterior elevations of the building. So part of the signage, before I walk through the signage, so we're showing what we believe to be compliant in terms of signage for the parking lot facing element. The individual tenants will be responsible for getting the sign applications and making sure it's all compliant with the code. But what we're showing here appears to meet your sign permitted sizes now per your zoning code, so that we size it according to that. Okay, so from the whole length of the existing Kmart, we plan on making it modern, more beautiful. The existing material now is a split face. It's like a brownish, tannish color. So we plan to do a stucco finish over the entire thing. Okay, we're proposing a series of columns that are going to be like a mixture of stone and a stone and a stucco finish. It's going to have a varying color, a contrast between a darker tan color with a lighter tan on top, like a cream color. So we'll have a series of columns, and then between the columns, we're going to propose canopies that will tie back to the building. And then to really make it more of a tenant feel and an individual retail, we're proposing to add a lot more glass. The existing building was maybe only like 10% glazing. Here we're closer to 50%, 40 to 50%. So we're just going to modernize the entire building. Okay, we plan on doing the whole face of the building facing the parking lot. On the left side where it has the I believe it's a Yorktown grill. We plan on wrapping it to blending into that facade so that the whole building looks uniform. And then right now, where's my other elevation? We are not proposing to do the remainder of the building just because it's, we were really trying to emphasize the Uncle Giuseppe's area, that face of the parking lot. So just to modernize and beautify that part of the building, and that is the thinking at the moment. The signage part, so we are showing the TJ Maxx, the Five Below, and the Michaels, and then we're showing another sign over the other tenant, which we believe to be compliant with signs. The TJ Maxx size that we have in the back of the building, that's on the loading dock area, that is a nice to have. It's not a mandatory thing. I know the tenant expressed that they would like to have it, but if I know they would be fine if we can't get approvals from the board, Chip. So I know that was something that is worth discussing, because as you draw on Sawmill Road, like, that's a sign, you're gonna focus your eyes on that. So I think that is important. But they do recognize that, hey, you know, local planning boards, there are requirements, and if they can't get it, they're fine with that. So that's the whole bottom of the facade will have that stone. We will be working together with the owner and with the board to come up with a material palette, colors that's satisfactory to everybody. You know, we don't always like to have it our way. So we have the colors kind of selected that we like. I would like to point out that our building, for the most part, we're keeping it existing. We're not going to go higher than what was there existing. Okay, the previous building was at 30 feet. We're going to maintain that 30 feet in building height. So we're not asking to go higher. We're just maintaining that. Okay.
Are you I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
While we're on the subject. So you're not going over what is an established existing height?
Correct.
But are you modifying any of the existing parapets in terms of height or anything like that?
Yes, I do have a demo drawing because I knew this was going to come up. I don't know if it's on this one. So the existing building where the Kmart was in the center, it was raised up higher, and it does have this like triangular pennant type structure. So we'll be modifying that and removing it, and then where we have the TJ Maxx, that portion is going to be raised up higher. So that we're trying to anchor that part of the store, so it will get raised up on that TJ Maxx portion of it, but it will not be higher than what's currently there.
Okay, so there will be a higher section where TJ Maxx is, and some of the others may be, seems to me a little bit variation, minor variation between the entire parapet. That looks, other than the entry area, that looks pretty consistent across the entire facade. This is a little bit more modulated, so there will be some up and down, right?
That's
correct. Do you have an idea of how you're going to treat that behind it? And the reason I'm asking is it follows the same discussion as the sign in the back. You can see that roof area from the same vantage point. In the back right now, I think there are some built, crickets, so to speak. They don't qualify, they're too big to qualify as a cricket, but you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So if you have some treatments like that, I think it would be good to talk about those and their impact from Route 118 in the same vein that we're talking about this potential sign in the back. So.
Understood. So, I mean, the plan is just to we're going to re-roof the structure. So we're going to place a white TPO roof membrane. So, and then we were just planning on running that up the back of the wall, the parapet, because for traditional reasons, for waterproofing, in terms of adding additional design elements, we weren't originally anticipating to make the finish which appears on the front of the facade. We weren't intending to bring that in the rear, just because we were at the same elevation. But that doesn't mean we're not open to compromise.
Yeah.
Just
want to make sure that we
That's-
understand what we're getting
right.
before we get it.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think my earlier comment about the back of the building, now that I see what you've explained about the front of the building, you're giving the front of the building a lot more fenestration that's going to make it more pedestrian friendly, in my opinion. And so when I look at the front of the building, the scale seems to me to change given the windows that you've proposed. I think the back of the building would suffer the same positive results if you were to not put windows back there, but if you were to address the back of the building, and the parapet wall need not be the same material, but if you shielded the back of the parapet wall and also hid all the mechanicals that are going to be up on that roof, the whole back of that building is going to change in character, positively, I think. So I'd be much more in favor of looking at signage across the whole back of the building, not for just TJ Maxx, but for other tenants, if you were to address the whole back of the building. And that would have a presence on 118 that would be very positive in my mind, rather than just trying to fix it as best we can.
We saw that change with the mall. They took down the
Exactly.
berm.
Right.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
like the
Trees.
berm on
Yeah.
Route 6.
So then if you're focused on it, you're focused on something worth looking at.
Right.
So,
I have a question. A couple of years ago, we saw a completely different vision for this property. And is it safe to say now that, given the fact that you're going into tenants in existing spaces, that that's basically off the table and gone and not likely to come back?
This is the project that we're going for.
Okay.
You know, I mean, yeah, we're leaving the existing materials in the back of the building. This is really, it's a CMU, it's a split face, it's more decorative than your traditional masonry, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it actually looks pretty nice and it was maintained very well over the
yeah,
years.
I think it may just need to be recoded, you know?
Yeah.
And some of the details looked at, and some of the mechanicals that may just be surface mounted could be rerouted or, you know,
Yeah, we could
cleaned
post some
up.
screening.
Yeah, just cleaned up, and somebody has to focus their attention on making that happen. It's not gonna happen by whatever tradesman happens to be there. It's gotta have a plan. So.
Okay.
And the if there's a parapet wall on the back of the building, it need not be the same material as the parapet wall in the front of it. Just needs to be a parapet wall that can act as a screen.
And we'll look at it and we'll talk on our end to see what we can
Okay.
come up with. But we appreciate the comments and.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Anything at this
comments
point?
from the board or anything?
All right, so we'll take a ride out there.
Take a look.
We'll say, I'm sure everybody's pretty excited about the vacant stores being filled.
Yes.
That's a great thing for Yorktown. So we'll dig into the details. Please work with Robin and John to get some of this together. And I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Great. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we'll get back to you guys. I mean, just to circle back quickly, so really it's more focusing on what kind of a plan we're gonna have in terms of landscaping, things like that.
Oh, you gotta, yeah, you're gonna get Tom mad.
So landscaping, I think, was one of the things that we really talked about, so we can work on getting that to you guys before our next meeting. Anything else in terms of plans or changes you guys would like to see?
I don't know if you've done it, and this is, again, it's not something that needs a lot of scrutiny, but we have to do it nonetheless, is just the parking. You're adding the 400 or 500 square feet, that translates to such and such demand for parking, but however, you have X amount of spots. You do the division of how much
Yeah,
square footage you have, and you're gonna end up with having enough.
Okay.
Without adding any, but
Yeah, we
that
can-
should be on there as a matter of course.
yeah, we can definitely
Yeah.
review the parking changes and see what that comes out to.
Yeah. And the only other thing I want to mention, pursuant to doing your interior fit up prior to,
Yep.
which I think this board is going to do a memo to that, but if you continue to wish to do that, you'll need to put something on your plans. I don't know if this is filtered down to you already, on your construction plans that just takes that area out of the picture.
Okay,
That's the addition.
okay.
That's all.
Sounds good. So we can make sure if our construction plans do have that additional space, you're saying?
For the interior foot up, you just got to, you know,
Yeah, this way we can keep going with the interior construction work that we're doing now, but it won't interfere with what this board is considering. Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Well, thank you. We'll get on that, and then, in terms of timing, how do you guys usually, once we get it back to you guys, when would you like to see us back?
once you get the next iteration back, we'll put you right on the next available meeting.
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll get that over to you guys right away then.
On that note, just so I will say, for Tom, our next meeting is April 15th. We have one meeting in April. It's at the center. The Albert Capolini Community Center.
Because of the election.
You're making us move. Any questions? You all set?
We're good, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
Motion.
Already?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.